Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Well, Elon Musk is now the richest person on the planet.
More than half the satellites in space are owned and controlled by one man.
Well, he's a legitimate super genius. I mean, legitimate.
He says he's always voted for Democrats, but this year it will be different. He'll vote Republican.
There is a reason the U.S. government is so reliant on him.
Elon Musk is a scam artist, and he's done nothing.
Anything he does is fascinating to people.
Welcome to Elon Inc., Bloomberg's weekly podcast about Elon Musk. It's Tuesday, February 11th. I'm your host, David Papadopoulos. Today, we're talking about what else? Doge. Since we last gathered here, Musk and his band of Doge zealots have burrowed themselves into many corners of the federal government as they frantically pursue their goal of gutting what they deem wasteful. The pushback from courts across the country is mounting. Now, the question, or one of the questions, is, will Musk and the Trump administration heed the judge's warnings? And then, yesterday afternoon, a bombshell dropped. Elon was leading a group of investors offering $97.4 billion to acquire OpenAI. Is Elon serious? Is he just trolling? Is he messing with rival Sam Altman, who, it should be noted, quickly rejected the bid? To talk Doge, we have Dana Hall. Hey there, Dana.
Hey, David.
And Max Chafkin. Max, how you doing?
David, hello.
Hello. As well as Bloomberg political reporter Josh Wingrove, dialing in from Washington. Josh, welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's an eventful time.
Indeed it is. And then later on, we will welcome back a special guest, a guy fast on his way to earning official friend of pod status, New York Magazine tech writer John Herrman, to talk about what he calls the Elon bailout, as well as the latest chapter of the Musk OpenAI saga. Okay, Josh, so we're going to start with you there. Doge is on the rampage. Bring our audience up to speed. It's all happening fast and furious. Give us the last 72 hours in the Doge universe.
I mean, they are trying to dive into everything, and Trump has given them license to hit every department, including defense, including education, including Treasury, of course, where a lot of the news has been focused in this past week. But just to, give you a scene, like every time a headline drops on something they're doing or something that makes Democrats' heads explode or, whatever, we all go to the White House for comment. And they've been sort of like dancing around it a little bit. But Trump himself consistently really leans in on this to give sort of license, essentially, to what Elon Musk is doing with Doge.
Josh, really leans into what exactly?
Trump is leaning into endorsing what Musk is doing. He's putting in caveats here and there, but generally speaking, when we ask him about it, as was the case a couple days ago as he flew to the Super Bowl, he's sort of blessing. He's standing by Elon. And every time Musk gets in trouble, you kind of wonder, is this the moment where they're going to crack? Is this the moment where Trump is going to start distancing himself? And we just haven't had that happen right now. On the contrary, Trump is really, stuck close to him. And for an example, on Sunday, Trump called us up to the front of the plane as he flew to the Super Bowl. He had a big sign that said Gulf of America. We were over the Gulf of now, I guess,
America.
You're
over the Gulf of America.
Yeah.
By the way, now to be seen on Google Maps, the Gulf of America, Max.
Apparently, depending on where you are. But he, held court for a while and talked about this, and in particular wandered even into the notion of treasuries being something.
So Josh, just for a second, for our audience, treasuries, U.S. Treasury bonds, this is the debt the United States government has taken on to finance its spending when it spends more than it takes in revenue, which is the case in just about each and every year. And I think nowadays, there's roughly about $30 trillion, give or take, of U.S. Treasury debt out there.
It's more than that now. But yeah, there's a lot of it out there. 36, I think, is maybe a more recent number. And the reporting until now is that Musk and the Doge team at Treasury have been focusing on payments that Treasury is sending out. But Trump sort of suggested that it went even beyond that it wasn't just sending out payments that Trump's team thinks you shouldn't send out, that it was, maybe the debt that we have isn't as big as we thought it was. And that really raised eyebrows because then it raised the notion that we were talking not just about Treasury payments, but that this sort of fraud hunt extended even towards the debt. And of course, the notion that the U.S. might start, wavering on whether it considers its debt legit or not, has the potential to rattle markets. So that kind of that rattled things. I think just overall on this, Trump is framing this as fraud to give it political license. He's saying that he was elected to get rid of fraud and that Elon is doing his work for him. So he's pushing back on the suggestion that Musk is, an unelected guy sort of marauding through the government.
Out of control,
with the keys to everything. Yeah. Right. So Trump is not only standing by him, he's like writing him a blank check.
He's saying, Elon Musk is my guy, Max. Fraud everywhere.
I don't know what he's talking about with the Treasury thing. My best guess is that it's like a calculation question. It's like how they're going to decide to calculate the amount of debt or something like that.
Max, are we defaulting? Just tell me. If we're defaulting, I want to know.
I think one of the reasons that they're talking about fraud, I think it's both because of who Elon is, but also politically, right? That like a lot of the stuff that Elon is walking towards is super unpopular. And whether it's like cutting NIH funding, the NIH is a major cause of a lot of jobs in a lot of red states. And you can kind of go down all these charities that they were attacking. There are lots of things they're doing that voters, senators, congresspeople are not going to like. So that's why they're keeping it focused on fraud, I think.
I would just like to remind listeners that this whole idea of Doge was Elon's idea. He proposed it to Trump on an audio spaces in August and basically pushed Trump to say yes. And so I get super frustrated when I see stories that are like, Trump has tapped Musk to like lead an efficiency effort. This was Musk's plan. This is
Musk tapped Musk.
Musk pitched this job for himself and has been given carte blanche from the executive, from the administration to do what he's doing. Congress is totally flat-footed and has been completely supine and has rolled over and abdicated. The whole concept of separation of powers is being eroded. And now you're seeing Musk go after the judiciary. Whenever there's like a judge filing like a stay or a TRO, like Musk is basically calling out the judge on X. So like we are seeing like the whole concept of balance of power completely be eroded, and nothing is going to stop Elon at the moment, as far as I can tell. And they are already signaling that they're not going to go along with what the judge says. So, and to Josh's point, like the fact that Musk is doing this with this sort of widespread power, that Trump is supporting him, and that Congress is sort of left flat-footed, kind of works in the administration's favor.
So, Josh, on that point that Dana raises on this administration and Musk's Doge team challenging courts and clearly pushing through things that they know themselves are very much in a gray area of the law, and then also to a certain extent saying, well, we'll see how much we abide by what the court says. Presidents going back for years have pushed the boundaries of the law and then seen how the courts reacted. Just how different is this time around?
Trump, with every day, challenges at the very least sort of the perceived limits of the power of the presidency. He really believes in consolidating power. Even his sort of go-to move these first 2 weeks, his executive orders, those are usually pretty flimsy. They're sometimes not worth the paper that they're printed on. But Trump is wielding them like royal decrees, and people are bowing to that. So he kind of has shifted the Overton window on what like an executive order is, and therefore what presidential authority is. And so Elon continues to test that. I think there are a couple things to watch for. Number one is, do the secretaries start pushing back, right? Because he's mucking around in the, back rooms of the Department of the Treasury, the Department of Education, the Department of whatever. And as long as the secretaries are buying into that, no problem. But if they start pushing back against that, then you start to get power struggles. And power struggles, of course, were a defining feature of the first Trump administration. So far, sort of, kept down in the second Trump administration. But if that starts happening, who knows how that's going to shake out.
Scott Bessent is one that
the
keeping an
Secretary.
eye on. Yeah, Treasury Secretary. Last week, Musk, they had this whole, back and forth over does he have read-only access? And Trump was saying, Trump and the Trump administration was essentially saying that, look, he can look at the data, but he can't do anything with it. And then Musk goes on Twitter and says there are still billions of payments in fraud going through the Treasury payment system, which kind of sounds like an attack on Scott Bessent, right? You're sort of saying like, oh, Scott Bessent doesn't have control of this. And again, this thing that Josh brought up earlier, some idea that maybe some of the bonds that we have are, we don't have to pay the debt on or whatever. Like, it definitely seems like that is undermining part of what Scott Bessent has to do. And you could imagine that leading to conflict.
Now, Dana, as Josh was intimating, Musk and his crew are about to head into the Department of Defense. They are there already. The stakes, once they're in there, for any number of reasons, suddenly really ratchet up quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's because the Defense Department is a huge part of our overall budget, and because Musk is a defense contractor. So SpaceX has a lot of contracts with the Department of Defense for both rocket launches and Starlink. And he has said quite publicly, like, including during a conversation at West Point, that the future of warfare is AI and drones. Well, guess who has an AI company? Elon Musk. Guess who has, makes military hardware and drones? His buddies at Anduril. So you're going to see a real shift in terms of the way the Pentagon does procurement, and Elon and his friends have an enormous amount to gain there.
Attempted shift. I don't know for sure that's going to actually happen because, again, same thing I brought up about the NIH, and I've said this before on this podcast. These defense contractors are major job creators. I don't know that Musk is going to have as much rope as people think he will cutting the defense budget.
Again,
because of the conflicts of interest and because we're talking about jobs.
I think going after U.S. aid and its roughly, Josh, $40 billion a year budget that largely, of course, goes overseas to people who do not vote in U.S. elections is one thing. Going after large contracts for the military-industrial complex, I think, is an entirely different thing. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, says he welcomes Elon with open arms. That one is going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. Now, Josh, but they're on the ground in D.C. What is the mood on the Democratic side? My understanding is their phone lines are blowing up from irate constituents saying, damn it, do something. What's the sense there? Where do they stand in forming a credible opposition to Musk and Trump?
They're in a really tough spot because conservatives are mostly delighting in what Musk is doing. I think that that's an important factor to look at here. If people think that there's some sort of pressure building up on Trump within the Republican Party, within the broader conservative movement, it's just not there. And so for Democrats, when they go and do some, stunt or whatever, trying to go into these agencies that are being dismantled, the problem is that only sort of feeds the perception that it's delighting conservatives who are wanting Trump to really make structural changes to the broader state. And so that is really the trap that they're in. Not only are Democrats, of course, kind of rudderless right now, but more broadly, they don't really have any tools that would be effective to sort of crank up the pressure on this, whether it's at USAID or others. The blowback that Max alluded to is going to come more from when these start hitting red states, for instance, when Bama gets hit by funding cuts.
Max, that is a good point that according to a CBS poll that came out, I believe, on Monday, Donald Trump's approval numbers are up since his inauguration, I believe. A greater number of Americans now approve of him and what he's doing vis-a-vis from before.
It's true, although Elon Musk's numbers haven't looked so good. There have been a couple of polls. I haven't looked. I don't know if anything's come out this week, but last week there were 2 polls, showing that Musk's numbers had fallen since the election pretty badly. So, but I think Josh is right. I think, and what you're saying, picking on these kind of soft targets, like USAID or whatever, the pain is going to come later. The pain for Trump politically is you've made a lot of promises, and what have you actually done except for sow a lot of chaos, right? $50 billion is not that much money in the scheme of things. And a lot of these things that Musk has done, either they sound very dramatic, and there's been a real cost for the civil service, but it's not clear that he's going to come away from this having achieved a whole lot. And then if you put that on top of, creating chaos in red states or pissing off voters, I mean, we are seeing some activation of grassroots Democrats.
This reminds me, actually, that we're still playing out, I believe, as we speak, is the Musk team's offer of buyouts to all federal employees. I think that's been paused by a judge.
Yeah. And so far, they've got 60,000 people. They get 100,000 retirements each year. So, that is not a big number. That's a small number. And so, again, tons of talk, tons of chaos, pain in a very few specific areas, but I don't know that he's actually done all that much, despite the crisis that Dan is talking about.
One thing that he has done, and with this, we will wrap here on this first segment, is, I was dead wrong. I thought the first thing Doge was going after was daylight savings and that they were going to make it permanent, and I'm a little disappointed that they have not gone there at all.
Plastic straws and pennies.
Pennies, you got it.
Big
the penny, whoever's pushing back on the death of the penny, just zip it, man. I mean, the penny's got to go away. The penny is truly absurd. And after they're done with the penny max, they can go for the nickel. Max is
bold talk from Papadopoulos over here. Wow.
When you're done nixing the penny, nix the nickel. Josh Wingrove, you are going to be you already are a very, very busy man, and you will continue to be so. And as a result, we will have you back on again soon.
Thank you all for having me. I'll keep letting you know when we see him in the White House.
Okay, we're now joined by John Herrman, New York Magazine tech writer. John, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, John, so you were last on a year ago. Man, we were so young and innocent.
Porn. We were talking about
porn.
We were
just porn. Like, we're just, and God, what did we know? We had no idea what we were in store for. And Musk was really, if you think about it, he was essentially a nobody, right? Like, and now every time you shake the magic 8-ball and see something goes on in the world, it just comes up Musk. Now, John, you have written a piece recently where you lay out what you believe to be the bailout, as you call it, that Elon is getting as he jumps into the government and does all these things, and as he buddies up with Trump. I got to tell you, just off the bat, I'm going and I'm a little dubious on this bailout thing here, so convince me of it.
Yeah, I mean, as a term, it's a little provocative, but I do think this is a strange time, confusing time, and it's helpful to sort of back up and try to, in the spirit of the show, look at Elon Musk first principles and try to figure out what's going on. On one hand, you've got someone who is very open about attempting to mingle his own business interests in ways that are often unconventional and in some cases challenged in court. So his portfolio of companies is used, to support one another in ways that are,
Yeah.
He has a sort of fundamental belief that his success is sort of fused with the fate of the world, that he is sort of destined to save the world. He says this all the time. You can, doubt his sincerity, but in my view, it's real in some sense. He's really he believes that what he's doing is this important.
Yeah, I think the three of us here, Max, Dan, and I all very much believe that he does believe.
So we've got those first principles. Now, what happens if you add the United States government to that portfolio of companies in the view of someone who thinks this way? Mm-hmm. You start to think about how the government helps Musk, and he tends to talk about more how Musk can sort of change the government. So you've already talked on the show about the obvious overlap with companies like SpaceX, which has enormous contracts with different agencies in different parts of the government, and we'll have even more through Starlink. We can talk about Tesla, various subsidies, things like that.
So how does Musk's relationship with this administration, his very cozy relationship with this government, help, for instance, X?
Right. So SpaceX is an obvious contractor. X is further away from what we think of as, the normal operations of government. But it's Elon Musk's probably most distressed asset, not his most financially important. He is using it now to sort of command his incursion into government. So it's become very, very visible. But also his proximity to power has real value to X. He is currently in the process of suing advertisers for what he says is an illegal boycott of X.
Right.
Which is a lawsuit that I think a lot of people didn't take very seriously when he first filed it.
Well, it's certainly unconventional.
Certainly, but he amended it recently, and some of these advertisers are coming back because, maybe they were content to ignore Elon Musk before he was the president's right-hand man.
John,
but now,
John, I will just warn you that the last person who said on this podcast that the advertisers were coming back got blown up by Max. And so,
no, I don't. They're not.
That coming back, does coming back mean, hey, here's 2 chits, here's 2 tokens I'll put on your board to appease Mr. Musk? Are they really coming back?
The numbers, I mean, we don't know the full numbers, but they are signaling that they're, more open to coming back than they were. That's one piece. Another piece is that X is sort of becoming a little bit like Truth Social, this extension of the government communications program. The NTSB, for example, announced in a post on X that was where they were going to be messaging about recent air disasters, which is, you know, a small thing, but also potentially a sign of like a bigger thing.
Right. This is an extension of the Max Chafkin theory that's what X has become. It's become the media arm.
But this is like the least important of Musk's companies that are benefiting from the dynamic that John is talking about. It's like saying, well, how is Musk's video game playing? How is the Trump administration benefiting his status on Path of Exile?
Right.
Like, it actually might be, maybe, but like, honestly, SpaceX, Tesla are way bigger companies with so much more to gain.
All right. Twitter's is the least important, but it's like really visible and really, like, I think a lot of people pointed to Musk's takeover of Twitter as like a playbook, which I think is useful, but you sort of extend that a little bit further and you're like, okay, how does it flow the other way? And there are these real benefits to being someone who everyone is a little bit scared of. The advertisers maybe come back. People have to use your platform. People have to pay attention to your platform.
Tell us, though, how this is a net positive for Tesla, because that's not screamingly obvious.
No, the Tesla situation is weird. I feel like that statement holds true pretty much at any time that you talk about Tesla's stock, for example. It's this weird company in that it's a major automaker that sells a ton of cars and has real financials. It is also, to a great degree, kind of a meme stock. And that depends on Elon Musk's reputation, his promises about the future, some of which are kind of crazy and some of which just seem a little premature. You know, it's a mixture of like, can he deliver? Will he deliver? Is this made up? Now, in addition to that, you've got this, you know, sort of implied connection to the establishment in the biggest possible sense. So not only does Elon Musk say, okay, listen to me, I know we had a bad quarter, which they did. Don't worry about our cars. Think about our cyber taxis. Think about our humanoid robots that we're working on. Think about AI. Think about these things with, you know, vague future dates. And, you know, we're doing this cycle again. But also, what if, and think about this, investors, what if I now can't lose? What if I am like the supreme government-connected capitalist of the world?
There's some clear examples where Tesla is really well positioned. So example one, tariffs. Tesla doesn't make cars in Mexico. They make all of their cars that they sell in the United States. So they are sort of like insulated from tariffs compared to, you know, Ford and GM. The second thing is the NEVI program. So like the Trump administration just funded, or just basically froze or halted all of the payments that go out to the states to build a network of high-speed electric vehicle chargers. Halting those payments really disrupts all the plans that these states had to kind of build out a charging network, but it really helps Tesla, which actually already has a charging network that a lot of other automakers use. And so in small ways, you're seeing the administration do things that do benefit Tesla. And what I try to remind people is like, you know, Elon has very smartly played both sides of the aisle because like Tesla got enormous benefit from the Inflation Reduction Act. And now Trump is like walking back a lot of that, but it's like they're not walking back 45X, which is the manufacturing tax credit. So like Tesla wins no matter what. Like they are going to be okay. The biggest risk to Tesla right now is just the brand and of Elon's craziness and the sales plummet in markets like Europe and the US.
Yeah, and to that point, and Max, in my absence last week, I do appreciate you guys talking about the collapse in sales in California, which were followed then by a collapse in sales in Germany and I think France that happened around the same time. And these are big numbers, down 60% or so. All that, I guess, certainly does seem to square with a drop in Musk's approval rating. And I guess if right now there are any checks or leverage that Musk detractors have on him, maybe this is the extent of it.
The sales, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to reiterate one thing Dana said, which is like really important. Like it would be awesome for Musk if he could just like get the Defense Department to hand him like a $10 billion check for something, or to like just have the federal government like pay him directly. Yeah, buy some Starlink satellites, buy a Mars mission, have Tesla as the new designer of military Jeeps or some crazy stuff. Like that'd be great. But that stuff is going to be more difficult. It's politically difficult. But just stopping stuff benefits his companies enormously. Like if he is able to like pull up the ladder behind him on tax credits, or if he is able to
for EVs,
if he is able to slow down other providers of rural broadband, which he appears to be doing, like all these things,
competitors with Starlink,
all these things like help him. And so he's gaining just by like cutting things. And we haven't even started talking about writing checks. I do
addition by subtraction.
I do think the thing that John is saying that is really smart is that people see Elon as this like, he's this amazing capitalist. He has all this influence. He's the world's richest man, but he is vulnerable in certain ways. And like one of the reasons he did this with Trump is because I think he had vulnerabilities. And like those vulnerabilities continue today. And by it's not just the sales thing. It's by making himself a political force, by allying this closely with Donald Trump, a guy who is, his poll numbers have gone up a little bit, but he's not that popular. Musk is eroding some of the things that have made him very powerful. And you're seeing that in the stock price, right? Like Tesla stock has fallen by like $80 over the last few days.
Since the inauguration, I was looking at this morning, 12 of the 16 trading sessions since the inauguration, Tesla stock is down. It's not plunging each and every day, but it's down and it's down. Yeah, it's now down about 20%.
So I do think that the traders who have bid this stock up for no particularly good reason other than the fact that Elon has proximity toward Trump are thinking, like John says, hey, heads he wins, tails he wins, whatever. But you are seeing more reasons to doubt him. And like that is what is driving the stock down.
Okay, Dana, Elon Musk says he and some other investors want to purchase OpenAI. Tell us about this and where it currently stands.
So I guess they made a bid for OpenAI and Sam Altman immediately responded and was like, OpenAI is not for sale. So I don't know where this currently stands. I just think that like Elon is doing what Elon does, which is to sort of be like the big bully pulpit. And in the middle of, upending the American government, he's like trying to go on his M&A spree. And Sam is like, no, like we're not for sale.
Max, is this a legit attempt? You're furiously scratching down
I was
notes.
making sort of like a matrix on like how realistic is this acquisition offer for Elon Musk.
Okay.
So like on one side you have threatening to buy Coca-Cola to put the cocaine back in it, like clearly a joke offer. And then on the other side, you have buying Solar City, which was like clearly a serious offer.
Yes.
Twitter
worked out swimmingly.
Somewhere in the middle, because it was a joke, it seemed like, but then it became a serious thing. Buying Liverpool Football Club, which he has kind of joked about, I'd say closer to the Coca-Cola thing. This feels like, I'd say, smack in the middle of this chart, because it's not a serious offer.
So to the right of Liverpool?
To the right of, on the left, farthest on the left is the least serious, farthest on the right is the most.
To the right of
so
Liverpool.
It's like right, dead center. And I say that because it's not a serious offer in terms of the size. This is like a lowball
$97.4 billion
for OpenAI.
Wildly undervalues the company.
But I do think he could create chaos for Sam Altman if he goes to the negotiating table, right? And like, to me, this feels like, in poker terms, like big stack bully. Like if you have an insane amount of money, you in negotiations can do all sorts of things. You can sort of push people away from the negotiating table. You can, so like maybe he's just trying to cause chaos.
But Max, on the other side, isn't Microsoft on the other side alongside Sam Altman?
Yeah, but I think
they have
Elon
a pretty
Musk,
big stack too, no?
I don't think that Microsoft is necessarily as willing to raise hundreds of billions of dollars to buy out Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft has already bet a lot of money on this company. So like, I don't know what OpenAI's finances look like. This seems like a lowball offer, but I would have to think that if he started negotiating with them, he could create problems as Sam Altman tries to raise additional funding. Mm-hmm. And Sam Altman is trying to negotiate an equity stake for himself as part of this conversion to a
Yeah, we actually have
a
clip of Sam Altman and some things he said to us on Bloomberg TV earlier today.
Do you think Musk's approach then is from a position of insecurity about XAI?
Probably his whole life is from a position of insecurity. I feel for the guy.
You feel for him?
I do, actually. I don't think he's like a happy person. I do feel for him.
Okay.
So, John Herrman, hit me with your theory on all this.
I mean, with the caveat that none of this is inevitable and this could all go catastrophically wrong for Musk in a variety of different ways, he is, I think, like making this bid from a position of what he feels is strength, again, because of his sort of like incorporation with the government. So if we return to the sort of like bailout framework here, XAI is is by a lot of metrics doing very well. They're developing very quickly. They're catching up really fast. They're spending a bunch of money.
Its valuation's climbing.
Sure. And he's able to raise a bunch of money for XAI for, whatever. But it's not like it's making any money. It's still catching up. It doesn't have customers, really. It's not in the conversation with, like, programmers.
Wait. Does it not have the U.S. government as a customer now?
Well, that's the thing. Now it might. What if OpenAI, the clear leader in this moment in the, sort of loosely defined AI industry, that is getting its first big federal contracts, that is developing all these tools for major potential contracts here. What if they suddenly had a competitor that had, like, right of first refusal for basically every federal contract that had the term artificial intelligence in it? And you talk about Doge intruding into all these different agencies and showing up. This very small team claiming to use AI to do analysis, to streamline operations, that's all kind of made up right now. They don't have the tools to really do that, but it is a pretty clear telegraphing of a plan to say, like, hey, yeah, now we know everything. We have all the data. We are better positioned than anyone and are politically connected for, a market that basically doesn't exist yet. Why don't we, why wouldn't we win this? I don't mean to spell this out as like a complicated plot, but it's more just like, if you're Elon Musk, if you are this sort of like intuitive power-seeking person, you're in the position you're in. You're like, all right, I've got an AI company. Yeah. I hate Sam Altman. I'm going to try to buy them, and I'm going to take every federal contract while I'm on this run.
And by the way, I'm going to announce that I'm trying to buy them on the first day of this, like, global AI summit in France, when like everyone is focused on AI and when everyone is like and Sam Altman is in France, and I'm just going to, like, put out this, like, news that I'm trying to buy his company while he's at this conference abroad. Like, that's like a classic move to grab the news cycle.
Yeah, and stick it to Sam in the process.
While he's trying to raise money at a valuation that's 4x, right? Undermining the fundraise, too.
Right. And that, by the way, beyond Sam Altman telling Bloomberg TV that Elon is just a very insecure man, his main theory was Elon is just messing with us. Elon is trying to throw sand in the gears here as we try to achieve certain things, and we're going to do our darndest not to let him achieve it. Now, Max, when I guess I ask you this, you, our feud watcher of all feud watchers, and I guess I just wonder if you strip out Elon Musk versus the entire Democratic Party and all those who support the Democrats. So we're throwing that out as a feud. I guess of all the old feuds that Elon used to have and that used to watch and plot on your matrix.
Is this number one now?
No, not only is this number one, is this the only one that's left?
It does feel that way a little bit, right, David? And it's such a juicy one, too, because Sam Altman and Elon kind of have some things in common here, right? They're both these, like, guys who have make these grandiose statements. Sam Altman is talking about, we're going to have AGI, it's going to cure cancer or whatever. Right. You're going to just ask the AI to do something. It's like he's like writing a lot of checks with his mouth that he can't necessarily cash, exactly like Elon Musk. And it does have this quality of these two, like, masterful self-promoters suddenly colliding, which I think makes it great. I have been trying to just rack my brain trying to figure out 97.4. Did I get that right?
That's right. That's
what's number. That number? Like, where's the is it 97.42? Because otherwise, like, I don't know where he got this number. Like, where's the 420 joke? Where's the 69 joke? I want to know where the number came from.
Well, I bet you by the time we record next week, someone will have cracked the code.
Or we'll get one of those delayed announcements like the fork in the road sculpture.
Right, we'll get
We'll
get something like that. All right. So, John, not to put you on the spot here, but you listened to Max as he laid out the metrics of Elon Musk and his bids and how serious or not serious they are. When we have you back on a year from now, Mr. Herrman, is Elon Musk the owner of OpenAI? Yes or no?
Oof. I'm going to say probably not. But if he No, that's my guess.
Okay,
probably
and then
not. If he is, we'll have bigger things to worry about.
I see. Okay.
We won't be talking about that.
I'm going to say no.
No. Max.
I mean, I want to say yes to be different, but no, it's not going to happen.
No, and no. So it's totally happening. By the way, Max, we almost forgot here the biggest news of them all. Right? If you're really, I can't believe we're leaving it for last. Elon has a new name on his X account.
Oh, God. I don't even want to say it. Harry Balls. It's Harry Balls. It's his name.
Okay. Harry Balls.
It's just like the most powerful person in the world.
This is what he's doing with his time. There are a lot of...
probably this whole bailout conceit comes from the feeling of having to look at Twitter again and having to see Elon Musk's posts all the time, having to acknowledge the jokes, having to say Doge. The meme from 2011 or 2012.
Well,
maybe I should.
It's an attention bailout.
Maybe I should
for sure.
go to a therapist about this. But
No, it is true. Every time I read the word, I read Doge, and it's true. One just thinks, God, this is all so absurd. I mean, this was just a meme coin joke that is now.
Before that, 10 years before that, it was just a meme.
Right.
There were people writing about how it was worn out in 2012. Just a cute little thing, and here we are.
Dedicating our lives to it. This is our lives' work, Mr. Chafkin. John, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me back.
Max, Dana, thanks as always.
You've brought me down, David, but it's great to be with you.
Always a pleasure.
This episode was produced by Stacey Wong. Anna Masarakis is our editor, and Rehan Harmansi, our senior editor. Blake Maples handles engineering, and Dave Purcell fact-checks. Our supervising producer is Magnus Henriksen. The Elon Inc. theme is written and performed by Taka Yasuzawa and Alex Sugiura. Brendan Francis Noonan is our executive producer, and Sage Bauman is the head of Bloomberg Podcasts. A big thanks to our supporters Joel Weber and Brad Stone. I'm David Papadopoulos. If you have a minute, rate and review our show. It'll help other listeners find us. See you next week.